Hi everyone, welcome to a new Oxygen XML webinar. Last week we presented a webinar showing the new functionality added by the latest Oxygen release version 22. And today we are looking into extending the functionality of Oxygen using add-ons with a focus on some new and updated add-ons that were released together with the version 22. And I invited my colleague Sorin Cărbunaru to show you an insight into add-ons and discuss some of the most useful add-ons we think and the updated ones. Before we start, here it is some useful information. The question that we receive all the time is whether the webinar will be recorded or not. And the answer is yes. All our webinars are recorded, and the recording is made available both on the event page, the same page that you use to register, and also on our Oxygen XML YouTube channel, where you can find a large number of other videos, recordings from other webinars or maybe conferences and so on. Please note that although we reserve some time at the end of the webinar for questions and answers, we want you to ask questions at any time. Because otherwise you may forget them by the end of the webinar. And I will try to respond to your questions as we go, and we will go back to them also at the end so we can ask and respond so everyone can hear the questions and the answers. There is also my colleague Radu Koravu together with me to answer your questions. And if you like Twitter, you may use that as well, but mark your questions with the Oxygen XML hashtag or address them to the Oxygen XML account so we can easily spot them. So without further ado, please let me welcome Sorin, and I will make him the presenter so he can start his presentation. Hello, Sorin.
Hello, George. Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing fine and you're staying healthy. Today I'm going to talk to you about extending the functionality of Oxygen using add-ons. And before going into that, I wanted to say a few things about me. I've been working for Synchrosoft for the last 6 years or so, and my main area is the authoring experience and the data support. And I'm also one of the main contributors for one of the add-ons that I'm gonna present to you today. So yeah, that being said, I welcome you again and thank you for joining us. So let's get started. Okay, so in today's outline, we have 7 points. We will start by defining the concept of add-ons. Then we will see some benefits that you gain from using add-ons with Oxygen. I'll show you just how easy it is to install them. And then we will take a look at 5 plugins that can be installed as add-ons in Oxygen. And I will show you several things about each of them. Before going into the Q&A section, I will also show you a few possible directions for the future, both with the current add-ons and some possible new add-ons. So yeah. The best definition that I found for an add-on is an accessory designed to increase the capability of a core. In our case, the core is the Oxygen XML Editor, the standalone application, and we have 2 kinds or 2 types of add-ons that are supported in Oxygen. We have frameworks and we have plugins. A framework is a collection of files that can be used to provide custom functionality for a specific type of document. And these files can be CSS style sheets for customizing the rendering in the author mode. They can be schemas for validation, transformation scenarios for publishing to various outputs. And this is where I'm giving you a sneak peek into the next version that is right around the corner. In version 22.1, which will be released in maybe 2 or 3 weeks or so, we also added the possibility to export author actions as separate files, which makes editing them and developing them much easier. So I hope you are interested into working with that and trying it in the next version. The second kind of add-ons that we support in Oxygen, and the kind that I'm going to focus entirely in this webinar, is represented by the plugins, where a plugin is a software component that comes and brings extended functionality to the core Oxygen by using a series of extension points. Now, you might think, okay, I understood what an add-on can be in Oxygen, but what do I gain by using add-ons? So some of the benefits that I thought about are as follows. First of all, most of our current add-ons are open source, and they can be found on GitHub. You can go to github.com/oxygenxml and find them there. And this brings two benefits. One of them is the fact that users can take, if needed, issues into their own hands. So let's say you have an improvement request or a feature request, and we as developers are in the middle of something else and focusing a lot on something else, as I said, and we give you an estimate of several months until that improvement or feature will be available. And perhaps you don't want to wait that much. So you have this possibility by having the most of the add-ons open source and available on GitHub. You have this possibility, if you are familiar with Java or JavaScript, to take issues into your own hands and developing and creating that feature and making that improvement. And if everything is okay, of course, we accept you. You create a pull request on GitHub, we can accept it, and everyone is happy. By the way, contributions are not only allowed, they are highly encouraged, and they are very appreciated. And I want to use this moment to thank you, those who contribute to our add-ons from time to time. Then a second benefit, a second advantage that flows from the fact that our add-ons, most of them are open source, is the fact that they can be used as starting points for your own add-ons. Again, if you have, let's imagine that you have a very specific kind of request for your company, then you can use the add-ons that we made public as starting points. They're very good starting points. You can find several kinds of add-ons. So yeah, if you need to create your own add-on, then you can use the ones that we developed and made public as very good starting points. Several of our add-ons can be released at a faster pace than Oxygen. So in the past several years, we released one major version of Oxygen and one minor version each year. So again, if you have an improvement request or a feature request that you are looking towards, in Oxygen sometimes can take several months again, but in add-ons, if we implemented a feature or a couple of improvements, there's really no reason why we would keep that for us. So we can make releases actually as often as needed. So if there is a need for a feature, we can make it public, and we can make our users happy. And if our users are happy, our company is happy, we're happy. So that's good for all of us. We also have a community add-on where you can contribute your own add-ons. And if you go to our website, in the community page, you can read how you can contribute with your add-ons to this community repository. And as another benefit, as you will see in just a few seconds, the add-ons are very, very easy to install. I mean, very easy. And I wanted to mention the fact that there are also a few benefits for us as a team. For example, now that we are getting closer to releasing Oxygen, the next version, for the last few weeks, we had to slow down our engines in regards to developing the core Oxygen. So this is a good time for us to invest our time. We're not wasting any time. We are investing our time in other areas. One of the most important ones for us developers is the add-ons. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that also. I said that we will take a look at how easy it is to install add-ons in Oxygen. It's actually as easy as building structures from plastic bricks. All you have to do is go to the help menu, and then you have this action here, install new add-ons, and you have to select one of the two default update sites. One is actually called the default update site, and one is the community one. I want to show you that one. So here we have both a plugin and a framework that we can install. We can install both of them. Then you click next. You wait for the resources to be downloaded. Then you have to read, of course, the legal stuff, accept all the terms if you agree with them, of course, and install. Continue, okay, and then you'll be requested to restart the application, but I'm not gonna do that because I already have all the add-ons that I need for this webinar installed on my side. Secondly, starting from probably the last or second to last version, we started adding some actions into the main menus so we can make some features easier for you to find, and it's also a way for us to promote the add-ons. So if you go to the tools menu in the JSON tools submenu, you see this action called XSD, that's XML schema to JSON schema. And if you click on it, you'll see that you will need to install this additional add-on. And the same goes, for example, if you want to show this view called Feedback Comments Manager. Again, you will be prompted to install this add-on. So we did this for you to easily find this extended functionality that we bring to Oxygen by using add-ons. And in the next version, there will be a few other actions for some other add-ons, again, for a much easier way to get to this extended functionality. Here we have a list of a few add-ons that we as a team developed, and these are probably the most popular, the most used, that probably means the most important ones. So we have a Git client in Oxygen that contributes a couple of side views, and you can work with Git projects directly from Oxygen. Then we have a batch converter that can be used to convert several resources at the same time between various kinds of formats between various kinds of documents. I'm going to show you in just a few minutes what I'm talking about. We also have a Dogbook Validator and Completeness Checker, which is somehow similar to what we have for DITA in the DITA Maps Manager. We have an Emmet plugin used for high-speed coding. And I also wanted to mention this CMIS client, which is not yet released. It is more of alpha or perhaps beta version, but it can be used to communicate, to connect to CMIS-enabled servers, where CMIS is actually a protocol that is used to manage documents on content management systems. So if you are interested into this, please let us know. We have it, but it's not yet released, so it requires some more polishing, and we are interested into whether you are you like it and you need it, so we can know what to do, how much we could, how fast we should release it. And if you go to our blog, you can find a post by Radu Koravu where he presents much more information about other add-ons, and he also gives a history of add-ons in Oxygen. So if you're, I would recommend you to read that, and if you're interested, go to our blog and look for this Oxygen add-ons overview that we have available. So that being said, now it's time to switch to Oxygen again and take a closer look at the add-ons that I just mentioned. So we will start with the Git client. You can see on the right side of the main editing area that there is this Git staging view with several sections. We have the toolbar section, we have the working copy section, and then the unstaged and staged resources area, and the commits section. Using the toolbar menu, the toolbar, you can clone a repository. You should provide the repository URL, and you can select which branch you want to check out, and then a destination path. You can, of course, push the changes to the server, then pull changes from the server. And here we have two possibilities. The standard way, a pull based on merge, so it does a fetch and a merge. And for those of you who are more accustomed to Git, and perhaps in your company you have this requirement to or a guideline to use pull with rebase, we also have this possibility. You can switch between the branches of the current repository. In my case, for this webinar, I only have one branch. If you use submodules, we also give you this possibility to use them with our client in Oxygen. Submodules, the shortest way I can put it is a submodule is a Git repository inside another Git repository locally as a subfolder. So if you are working with them, you can also try them from our Git add-on. And the last action on the toolbar is the history action. And this shows at the bottom another side view where you can look at the history of the entire branch. And in the bottom left panel, you can see some more details about each commit. And in the bottom right panel, you can see the resources that were affected by a certain commit. And if you, let's say, we're looking at this commit, if you right click on the affected resources, you can find the contextual menu with these three actions to open the file, to compare the selected commit with the previous version, or compare it with the working copy version. So yeah, so these are the actions from the toolbar. You can you can switch between several working copies, or clear the history if you have too many working copies. If you switch between projects and these projects are Git projects, when you give the focus to the Git staging side view, it will automatically ask you if you want to also set that project as the working copy. The unstaged and staged resources area, let me just modify a file so we can have an example there, or better, let me delete this. Okay, so you have the possibility to view all the resources in a flat mode, or probably a better way is to see the changes in a more organized tree view. You may ask, if you're not familiar with Git, what unstaged and staged resources means. Well, the simplest way to define staged resources is those resources that are ready to be committed in the local repository. So, of course, the unstaged resources are those resources that are not ready to be committed. And at the bottom of the staging view, you find the commit area where you can choose a previously used comment or provide a new one, and then you can commit everything. The resources from the unstaged or staged areas also have a contextual menu. So for example, I will now discard the folder that I just deleted. And you can also show the history for that file, or invoke the blame command, or open that file in the compare editor so you can see where is the difference between the last version. So here, as you can see, there's another letter, an S letter. And besides these side views, the Git add-on also contributes a few actions in the editor, in the contextual menu, to show the history and again invoke the blame command, and also in the project contextual menu to compare the current version with the last committed version, or to prepare for a commit, or again, those two actions, show history, show blame. Now, I showed you the history view. If you invoke the blame command, the editor will automatically switch to the text page, and as you can see, it will mark certain blocks of text with specific colors, so you can see different commits and better understand the history of that file. And when you select a specific block here in the text page, you will see that in the Git history view, the corresponding commit will be also selected. So this is, as you can see in the Git history, this is part of the initial commit. This is part of the last commit for this file. Okay, so that's pretty much it about the Git add-on. But before moving forward to the next interesting add-on, I wanted to also mention one more thing. I will also discard this. I think some people may be kind of scared by the possibility of conflicts when working with Git. And I want to show you in just a few minutes, so shortly, I want to show you how you can resolve those conflicts in our Git client. So what we have to do is make a change in the same file in the same area or on the same line. So we change the title here on the server, and we will also change the title here on our local file. Okay, so new. And now if you commit this file and then try to pull the changes from the server, you will get a conflict. So the first thing is seeing where the problem resides. So in our case, we have 2 changes from my side and from someone else from my team in the title of this topic. So now we have to decide which change is the best. Of course, this may require you to talk to the person who made this change. You can use the history view, you can use the blame command. So if you decide that your change is the best, you can just close this view and you will be asked if you want to keep these files and resolve the conflict by keeping your version. If you say yes, then all conflicts will be marked as resolved, and you can see here at the bottom in the commit area this message that suggests you now to commit to complete the merging. You can restart the merge. So let's say you didn't take the best decision, probably the changes from your colleague were the best ones. So you can just copy them from here, as you have these small widgets here to copy changes from one side or another, or you can use these actions resolve using theirs. That means the changes that come from the server, and then you can commit these changes. Or if probably there isn't none of them is the best change, you have to somehow provide a custom solution. Then you can keep, let's say, something from me and something from them, and then yes, I will save my changes, and again you are done with resolving the conflict. So as you have seen, it's not that scary to resolve conflicts with Git. All you need is a little bit of patience and good Git clients, and I hope our client does its job, and you can use that compare editor for easier deciding which changes you should commit. Okay, so that's the last thing I wanted to show you about the Git client. Now let's imagine you are working on a project about flowers. This is the sample that we have from Oxygen, and you want to expand this project. So you requested, let's call it the subject matter expert, to give you a few other topics about spring flowers, because this is now we are in spring. But unfortunately, the subject matter expert doesn't know DITA. You are working with a DITA project, but he committed and pushed in the Git remote repository some Microsoft Word documents. So this is how how this topic looks like in an Office suite, and you want to have the same result in DITA. So this is the point where the batch converter comes in handy. And if you look in the contextual menu of the project view, you will find, after you install the add-on, of course, you will find this batch converter submenu. And as you can see, we have quite a few of possible conversions. You can perform conversions from various formats to DITA. You can perform conversions between XML and JSON, from various formats to XHTML, and again from various formats to DocBook 4 or DocBook 5. In our case, because we are working with a DITA project, we are interested into performing this conversion from the Word documents to DITA. And when we invoke the action, you can see that the dialog, the input files in the dialog were set properly, and I will provide a folder where the result will be shown, and I also want to see the converted files. And when we run the conversion, as you can see, um, the document looks almost identical, at least almost identical to the original document. And we have the images here, we have all the links, we have all the styling, we have here, as you can see, lists. The Japanese characters were kept, both the kanji and the hiragana, and here we have also some Greek characters, so none of them were lost. The sections were kept. So I would say this is a successful conversion. So if you have several documents, Word documents in our specific case that you want to convert to DITA, you can use this add-on to do just that. But there is a little secret for having the best results. The Word documents need to be well styled. So for titles, you need to use the title style. For sections, you need to use the headings. So this is a small secret that you have to keep in mind. The input file has to use styles in Word for this example, and then the result will be very good, as you can see with your own eyes here. And if you this conversion was done to a generic topic, but let's say you want to have another specific type of topic in DITA. You can do that by working with the refactoring submenu that we have here in the DITA Maps Manager. So you can convert this generic topic to a concept, to a general task, a reference, and so on. Again, I mentioned earlier the fact that we also keep the images, and here is the folder where the images are kept, but you can move them into your images folder, and you can use the DITA master files support, so you can automatically update the references, so you won't have any broken references. Yeah, so this is what I wanted to mention about the batch converter, and I hope you will find it helpful, and you can give it a try after this webinar. A third add-on is the DITA References add-on. Let me open a file that has more references. I know Stephen also mentioned this in the last webinar, the webinar from last week, so it won't take too much now for me to show it. So all the outgoing references from the current editor, be it open in the text page or the author page, the references are presented here. And if you select one of them, it will be shown in the editor. If you double click it, it will open the target. And as you can see, the references are grouped based on their types. So we have media references to images, video clips, audio clips. We have cross references using both hrefs or DITA keys, references to local files, to remote files. We have content references and also content key references, and related links, both defined in the topic, as you can see here at the bottom of the topic, and also the related links that would be generated if you publish this DITA project, and these are taken from a relationship table in the DITA map. So I will show you the DITA map. Here at the bottom we have a small relationship table that defines this relationship between these two topics. So yeah, the DITA references view also shows these links that will be generated if you publish the output based on the relationship table in the DITA map. The second to last add-on that I want to show you today is the Emmet add-on. Emmet is a collection of plugins that are used for high-speed coding, and after you install it in Oxygen, you will see in the contextual menu of both the text page and the author page this Emmet submenu with two actions: to expand a certain expression or abbreviation, or to wrap a selected text with the expansion of an abbreviation. So for example, here we have some text on separate lines, and let's say we want to create a list with links to each of to a specific HTML page for each of these words. So as you can see here, I have already an expression that I will copy, and this says that it will create a div element with an unordered list and with several list items, each having an ID and then having an anchor with a specific href and a specific text. And if I select this and invoke the wrap with abbreviation action and paste this expression, you see this entire structure was generated. Here we have an example of an expression that we can expand. We also have shortcuts here, as you can see, Alt-Shift-E, and this was expanded to a list with 5 list items. And here we will expand this expression to a form element with the search ID and a class set to wide, and then an action attribute set to this value. So if I invoke the action from the shortcut, you can see the result. I said it also works in the author mode. So again, if I invoke the action, here we can create some inline, some siblings, some sibling inline elements. And if you want to find more about the capabilities of Emmet, you can go to their website, and here they have a cheat sheet, and you can find all kinds of expressions and how they can be used. One mention that I want to make is the fact that, at least for now, this doesn't work for CSS. You will find some CSS abbreviations here, but in Oxygen, you can use Emmet for XML and for HTML, but not yet for CSS. Okay, and the last add-on that I want to mention today is the Dogbook Validator. So I will switch to a Dogbook project. Again, after you install the add-on, you will see this icon on the toolbar. And also an action here in the contextual menu of the project view. When you invoke it, you can see that the input files were already provided. You can also provide some profiling conditions that will be applied before checking the completeness and making this validation. And there are several options at the bottom of the dialog for reporting profiling attribute values that which conflict with the profiling preferences, and then the possibility to report broken links to both external and internal targets, the option to check for missing pages, and another option to generate a hierarchy report for this operation. So if we proceed and perform the validation, you can see that here at the bottom we already have the results. This is the hierarchy report, and we can see each resource and links and so on, all resources that were checked by this action. You can export it as HTML if you want to. And here at the bottom, we see two tabs for each of the DocBook articles that have problems. So here in article 2.xml, we have a broken link that leads to nowhere on the Oxygen website. We have a value for a profiling attribute that is not defined in the preferences. In the other article, we have an element ID for a cross-reference that wasn't found and was reported by this add-on, and also a wrong path to an image, so a broken image reference. So yeah, this is pretty much, I hope, pretty much everything I wanted to tell you today. I hope I didn't forget anything, but if you have questions in just a few moments, you can ask them. But before going into that Q&A time, I wanted to mention a few possible directions for the future. So we have two areas of improvement. We have this way of improving the already existing add-ons, and we have this other direction to create new add-ons. So in the first possible direction, by improving the existing add-ons, for example, in the Git client, we can improve the branch management, for creating branches, for deleting branches, for merging branches. And this is something that we have in mind for the future. In the DITA references view, we can create a new tab for also showing the incoming references, which are very important because, if you look in the DITA references view and you see that there are many incoming references, then perhaps you should think twice before removing that topic, because it's probably important to the project if there are so many incoming references to it. We already have the API necessary for this. I just created it sometime a few weeks ago. So this is another way we can improve the DITA references view. In regards to the batch converter, we have this idea of creating a data map hierarchy from a Microsoft Word document, which is long and it contains several sections. So each section could be a separate topic in the data map hierarchy. And secondly, we have ideas for new add-ons. For example, we had a request from someone for a client for Perforce Helix Core. Helix Core is a versioning system, and someone wanted us to possibly have some new side view in Oxygen that works as a client for Helix Core. We can have a new add-on that provides integration with Google Translate. So, for example, we could have a widget in the text page, in the author page, and when you select a portion of text and then you invoke an action, we can show you this widget, and using the Google API, you can select different various translations, and you can translate the selection into various languages. Or we could go on and create a reuse analysis add-on. This would go, for example, it would scan your, let's say, DITA project and find portions of text, sentences, paragraphs that are duplicated in your project, and it would report them to you in order for you to extract them as reusable components and storing them into a reusable components warehouse, and then just reference those components in the places you need instead of duplicating the text. And if you have any other ideas, please feel free to share your ideas with us. Email us and share them with us because they are very important to us. So that being said, thank you for listening to me for the last 40 minutes or so. And yeah, now we have that special time for questions and answers. So thank you again. And George?
Thank you, Sorin. Me and Radu responded to some of the questions, but let's go through some of them and try to discuss a bit around them maybe and provide the answers so everyone can hear them. So first question was if you can connect to any type of Git repository, both public and private GitHub repositories, for example. And the answer is, of course, yes, you can use any Git repository, in fact, not only GitHub or and I also want to add something that I think it's very important, that basically you don't even need a remote repository in order to work with the Git and with the Git client from Oxygen, because Git has also local repository. So if you are using just Oxygen without any Git repository and you install the Git add-on, you can still use it, and that will give you like a history of the changes wherever you commit. Then you can go back in time for your project and see what you changed and so on. So that's very useful, I think, also if you do not use any remote repositories. And another thing that I would like to highlight for the Git client, and one benefit of using the add-on from Oxygen is that when you switch a project in Oxygen, the Git client will automatically pick up the repository from that project. So it will switch automatically to the right repository just by switching between projects. So you don't need to, move to another project and then in the Git client find also that repository. It will automatically switch. I find that very useful, I think. So another question was, what happens in cases of conflicts when you work with the Git client? And Sorin just presented that. immediately after the question was asked. Radu, do you want to say something? Or Sorin, do you want to say something? No? No, okay. Okay, again, a question about the recording. Yes, all webinars are recorded, and the recording is made available on our YouTube channel, Oxygen XML, and also on the event page. Is the Git add-on available to content creators using the Oxygen Author? Yes, the Git Client is a plugin for the desktop version of Oxygen and works with the Oxygen XML Editor, Oxygen XML Author, and Oxygen XML Developer. So you can use the Git Client in any of these. And actually, there is a related question that came later on, whether these plugins will work also for the web author. And these specific plugins are usually using the graphical user interface, and that's for the desktop, it's Java Swing. And while the web author uses for the graphical part HTML5, JavaScript on the client. So these plugins will not just work on with the web, but the web author has its own set of plugins. So there are a number. Maybe we will have probably it makes sense to have a webinar, or when we will have a webinar about the web author, we should cover also the plugins available for the web author. How are white spaces? How are white spaces? White space differences handled? How are white space changes handled with the Git client? So the Git client will treat white spaces as significant, but the diff from Oxygen has different options to ignore white spaces, or actually you can ignore also maybe namespaces or other things. So because the diff that we provide, it's XML aware, and it has a number of XML specific options, so you can get, you know, the actual changes, because maybe if you just change the prefix for a document, it's the same content, and you do not necessarily want to see that as a change, a real change, or you may just ignore that change. Can you show the compare editor? So the question was a bit not very specific, but I think it refers to showing the compare editor not only as part of the Git client, because automatically the Git client uses the compare support from Oxygen to present the changes between different files. I don't know, maybe when you are about to commit, or when you see the history and you want to see what's changed. But the diff, the compare editor, the diff editor can be also made, be presented from the project, for instance, or from the tools menu in Oxygen. And from the project also you can select 3 files, and the editor is supports 3-way diff. That means left, right, and the common ancestor. And that's what we are using actually for the Git client to manage conflicts better, because knowing the common ancestor, then you can decide exactly what each change represents. Moving to the batch converter, can you have it converted to your own data customization? Right now, it only converts to the base OASIS, and it's a pain to have this change, to change the doc type and so on. I think we do not provide a different type of conversion, but we do have support for refactoring actions, and we do provide already a number of refactoring actions, like the ones that convert between different topic types. So and Sorin presented that earlier. And you can have your own such refactoring actions because these are customizable and user-defined. And these actions can be applied not on a single resource, but on a set of resources. So you can batch apply these refactoring actions, and they may get a chance to convert maybe also the names of the elements and so on to match your customization. And then when Sorin presented the different possibilities to work on, there was someone that liked the reuse analysis idea. And I mentioned also that we already have a data metrics report that gives some information about what you have in your data map and covers a bit also the reuse part. Word to data map sounds very interesting. Another comment. What's the gain of incoming references view about the resource hierarchy view? So what's the difference? What does the incoming references gives you compared to the resource hierarchy view?
Yes, I think we should give some more. We should have some more time for analyzing this. There's a few differences, and depending on each person, you know, those differences can be seen as advantages or disadvantages. So the data hierarchy view shows a tree of resources starting from a specific resource, and this data references view shows them. They are presented in a different way, grouped. As I said and as I shown earlier, the references are grouped by their type. So perhaps you want to see, sometimes you want to see the tree structure, sometimes you want to see this other flatter structure with the references being shown by each category. So I don't know exactly what to say how to answer to that question.
Maybe
Yeah, yes,
Radu
George.
has some. Radu, can you?
Of
Do you
course.
want to also take it from here and provide some answers? Because I see that you already, as I responded to some of the questions, you had more time to look over the following questions that appeared, and maybe you can answer them easier than me.
So the advantage of showing incoming references in the resource hierarchy view. The thing with DITA is there are these small topics, and for each topic you need to know where it's referenced from and what other resources it references. So it's about context. It's about knowing what you influence with your changes. Because if you make a change, you need to know that the topic is referenced in multiple places, and maybe a single side view shows you both the incoming and the outgoing resources would be a benefit. Another question is there an additional cost for the add-ons? So the add-ons are free to use. Most of them can be used also with the older versions. So the current Oxygen version is version 22.0, but most add-ons work with also with the older versions like Oxygen 20. Some work also with Oxygen 19 even. There is a question about having the Git add-on available in the web author. The web author being the online editing tool from Oxygen. And the web author has its own Git connector, so it's not the Oxygen plugin, but it's something similar which allows it to work with the Git repositories.
That connector actually supports generic Git repositories and also has an enhanced workflow with the pull requests for GitHub, Bitbucket, and GitLab.
Also questions about like, please send us links to the documentation and the replay of the seminar. And George, if I remember correctly, you will send a follow-up email with the recording to all participants.
Yes, there will be a follow-up email, and also the recording will be made available on the event page and also on our YouTube channel, Oxygen XML. So on YouTube /Oxygen XML, youtube.com/Oxygen XML, you will find actually a lot of this webinar in a couple of days, and also a lot of all the previous webinars, maybe recorded sessions from a number of conferences, like our user meetups or the DITA OT Day and so on, are all available there.
Other questions like, can you show us where to find and install these add-ons? And I just sent you via the chat box the link to our documentation, which should have links to the add-ons. But most of the you can find the add-ons if you go to the main Oxygen menu, help, install new add-ons, and the Oxygen default add-on update
show
site.
that again.
Yes, I'm doing it right now. So again, the help menu, install new add-ons, and here you have to select. Most of them are on the default update side. And now, okay, so these are the available add-ons, at least for now, as well as those that I already installed. So the installed ones are not shown here. And one thing that I want to mention is the fact that once we make a public release for an add-on, you will get notified. You can go here in the Manage Add-ons action, and you will see here an update available, and you can click the update button to perform this operation. So yeah.
So there you have the add-ons that we created and are available on a couple of update sites that we provide, but there are also partners and other people that created their own add-ons, and they publish an update site where they link that you can use to install the add-on. And the question, following question asks about acrolinks. And the Acrolinks actually is one of our partners that created or they provide the plugins for Oxygen to provide their language checking tools within Oxygen Desktop, within the web author, and also within the Eclipse plugins. So they have a plugin for the desktop version of Oxygen. They have a plugin for the web author, for instance, to provide their functionality within two Oxygen users. If a plugin becomes extremely popular, will you bundle it in a future release of Oxygen so that it is automatically available? We did that actually for Content Fusion, for the Content Fusion connector. But then we also developed the functionality that Sorin showed you, where you can have a menu action that basically is a placeholder for the plugin. And when you click on that, that plugin will be automatically installed. So it's a lighter way or a bit delayed way of having the plugin in Oxygen, but not completely, let's say. A lightweight version of the plugin in a way. It's just the installer for the plugin that's present in the Oxygen menu, and so you can still discover that there is some new functionality there, but only when you actually try to use it, you will just follow a couple of steps and have the plugin installed, and then you can use it.
So they were asking about the Git add-on?
No, about whether, yeah, maybe the Git or add-on may be one of the
Okay,
functionality that we may want to bundle with the Oxygen in the future. Yes.
okay. I thought I heard Git, and I wanted to tell that in the next version there will be a placeholder available here in the show view submenu for the Git staging view, and if you don't have the Git add-on installed, you will be you will get the suggestion to install it. Yeah, I thought I heard Git. I don't know why. Sorry.
Many users might have enterprise customized versions of Oxygen installed. Do you know if any user with a valid license key has the ability to install these add-ons? I do not see an issue with that unless it's somehow restricted on your specific machine, or you have some policies that do not allow you to do that. But basically, usually the Oxygen licenses are user-based licenses, and even floating licenses will allow you to use even multiple installations of Oxygen. So you can install even have an installation that you can just use to test, let's say, and use it with some test files to try out how it will work with some new plugins. When you download an add-on, does it install locally if applicable? Yes. So when an add-on is installed through that menu option that Sorin presented earlier, it will be actually downloaded locally in the user home folder. There is an Oxygen XML location where the add-ons are placed. The downloaded add-ons are placed. Add-ons can be installed also manually in a plugins folder. I think we have that in the documentation. But then if you install it manually, then you will not be notified of new updates and so on. Can you show again how to find and install these add-ons? You did already, I think. Is it possible to remove an add-on if necessary? How do you?
Yes, of course.
So from the manage add-ons, you can actually also see.
You can also uninstall it, and here you can see the uninstall button. So let's say I want to uninstall the batch converter, then I click uninstall, yes, and I have to restart the application. But I think you can also go to the preferences in the plugins page, and you can disable. So you can do both, either disabling, that means the add-on is still installed but it doesn't have any effect in Oxygen, or if you want to uninstall and remove it from Oxygen, yeah, you can do that as I showed.
Okay, let me try to become the presenter again. So right now we do not have an upcoming webinar scheduled, but actually in a couple of weeks we plan to have a new maintenance release of Oxygen, so 22.1 should be available soon. And after that, we do plan to have, I think, 6 or 8 webinars covering the web author, collaboration with Content Fusion, covering the development functionality, maybe the JSON, the Markdown functionality that we added, and so on. The DITA functionality, because there are quite a lot of updates also in that part, and so on. So stay tuned, and so you can find under company events, you can find our upcoming events. unfortunately not so much conferences anymore because many of them were, almost all of them were canceled or rescheduled. We still managed to have this year XML Prague and the Oxygen users meetup in February. So we are grateful for that, but we'll focus after the upcoming release on quite a good number of new webinars that will probably be scheduled like every week at the same time on Wednesday evening for us, sorry. Wednesday morning for you, maybe. Okay, so yeah, thank you, and you know how to reach us. In case we are always happy to hear from you, and that helps us direct our future development of the product, of the solutions, of the plugins, and so on. Thank you, Sorin. Thank you, Radu, for helping.
You're welcome.
And thank you all for attending the webinar, and hope to see you again soon, virtually at least, for the foreseeable future. Goodbye. Have a nice day.
Bye. Bye-bye.